Being an addict during the holidays can be a surreal experience, and that's putting it lightly. My first Christmas as a junkie was actually pretty awesome, if you can believe it. I was
You
still a
said
weekend
junkie?
warrior back then, limiting my doses to stave off physical addiction, and whenever I felt myself getting a little too into it, I'd wean myself off with Suboxone and then start all over again. But then, as time went by, the small amount I used to do wasn't enough, so just a little got to be more and more. Slowly but surely, it took over my hobbies, work, then eventually family, until the only important thing in the world was making sure that I had enough not to get dope sick. I managed to stay functioning for about a year, and by that I mean I managed to hold down a job, keep up with relationships, and otherwise refrain from being a total screw-up. But after a bad breakup with the one girl that was holding me together, I gave up on any kind of dream or aspiration I had and settled on taking H for the rest of my life instead. I guess that sounds like a pretty crappy decision when I lay it out like that, but that's essentially what I did. I told myself it was all just temporary, that my so-called hero's journey would end in me kicking H after a few months on my butt, and that it would all end up being a crazy story that I told my drinking buddies one day. Well, a few months turned into 6 years of lost time, and like I said, the first few holiday seasons weren't so bad. But once I stopped talking to my parents and moved up to Portland, that's when things started getting rough. For a start, a junkie in the Pacific Northwest, the year is split into two halves. As the old Ella Fitzgerald song goes, summertime and the living is easy. And that's for all the obvious reasons you can imagine. Nice weather, good dope after the dry season harvest down in Mexico, and everyone's relatively chilled out. But then in winter, all you got is dope from the wet season harvest, which is weak crap that barely gets you high. Then on top of that, when it gets real icy or the snow is too thick, getting your hands on enough dope to see you through the day gets tougher and tougher. Then eventually around Christmas, pretty much everyone who isn't a degenerate junkie takes a 24 to 48 hour break to sing for.
Okay, wait a minute. What is this dope you talking about? That supposed to be the heron, the heron, and why is it red? That was like clear or something. Clear or white.
Feliz Navidad, see their families and eat their turkey or whatever. An experienced junkie knows to stock up before then, meaning people are boosting and selling like crazy in anticipation of their dealers turning their cell phones off for the day. So in the run-up to Christmas, I've been squirreling away cash like crazy, and on the 23rd, me and my girl managed to score 15 grams of crappy dope that'd be enough to see us through this next week or so, without
15
having to
grams
go out
is-
into the ice and snow to score more. We scored in the early afternoon, went back to my apartment, did enough to stop getting sick, then I went
junkie
out to work for a
relationship
few
is
hours.
insane.
My girl had a job working as a waitress and started her shift like an hour or two after I did, so it was normal that I'd come home to an empty apartment. So I finished my shift. One of the guys from work gives me a ride back home, and I got these tingles of exhilaration knowing I'm about to spend an hour or two in a warm bath with a few bumps of H to keep me company.
Okay, it is H.
I walk into my apartment, flop down onto the couch, then reach under it to pull out the little wooden box that we'd kept our dope in, and I sat it down on the coffee table, flipped it open, but instead of the 5 little baggies that should have been staring at me, there was nothing.
You got
At the time, I figured there had to be some kind of mistake. I had all these wishful thoughts, like maybe my girl had stashed the dope elsewhere after she saw the cops hanging around our apartment building or something, or maybe she poured all the dope into one of the bigger baggies that we had. You'd honestly be amazed at how much people will pay for baggies when they really need them, so maybe she'd sold or swapped the smaller ones, then just forgotten to put the dope back in the box. It sounds really pathetic looking back on it, but it took me a really depressing long amount of time to realize that there wasn't some innocent explanation for $300 worth of dope going missing. My girl wasn't my girl anymore, and
Oh
on
my
her way
god.
out, she'd stolen almost everything of value that she could carry.
That's so stupid.
Again, sounds pretty pathetic, But I think that was one of the single worst moments of my life right there.
You're pathetic.
My immediate reaction was, well, bad, but with addiction comes a certain pragmatism. Every moment I wasted freaking out that the love of my life had betrayed me for a few bags of dope was one that I wasn't spending trying to recoup my losses. So I got to work. I walked for miles, literally miles, making almost constant phone calls to a bunch of different people. Now don't get it twisted, I was still trying to call my girl, but she continued ducking my calls, and in the end, it didn't make sense to jam up my line with calls to her voicemail, even if it did mean that I could leave her some threatening voicemails. I'm not proud of it, but it is what it is. Anyway, I call around every dealer I know, and everyone is either out of stuff or is finishing up for the night and not answering their phones. All out of options, I started calling around everyone I know that uses, and all I can get my hands on is enough dope to last me the night. I walk over to the place, get the stuff, and walk all the way back to my apartment. I'm still trying to get a hookup the whole way. When I get back, I wait until I'm feeling gross, then I fix, go to bed, and wake up bright and early the next day to start all over again. The next day, pretty much the same thing happened, only without the goddamn disaster at the start of it. I walked all over town, almost constantly on the phone, but all I could find was enough to fix me for that night and that night alone. Everywhere I went, I was asking if anyone had seen my girl, and when everyone said no, every single time, I had this overwhelming sensation that they were lying to me. I guess it was partly paranoia, but partly based in fact too, because she couldn't have just disappeared on her own like that. Someone knew where she was, and who she'd run off with. But even if they knew, they'd never tell me. No one wanted to have the blood on their hands, and given the headspace that I was in at the time, I honestly couldn't tell you what I'd have done if I'd gotten my hands on my thieving ex-girlfriend. Anyway, like I said, I did a lot of walking, and only managed to get a hold of about a half a gram, so despite having enough to keep me from going into withdrawals on Christmas Eve, I knew Christmas Day was going to be rough as all hell. But still, the poetry of it wasn't lost on me. Cold turkey on Christmas Day, no better day for it, right? The weird thing, though, is when you're on heroin or any kind of powerful opiate, it kind of makes you chemically incapable of caring. Ever wonder why street junkies seem to have zero shame when it comes to begging or shoplifting? We just don't care. At least after those first few times, if you're deep enough into it, it becomes just another thing. So, I knew I was screwed, but it wasn't going to hit me until I started to get sick, and when it did, it hit me all at once. Around 8:30 on Christmas morning, I started calling everyone I knew who used again. This was the third day in a row, so people were only naturally starting to get sick of hearing from me. Everyone was either out or didn't have a single hit to spare me, and the more desperate I got, the more I turned to sketchier and sketchier sources. These were people who, for one reason or another, I'd learned not to associate or do business with, and in the case of one of them, I literally had him saved in my contacts as Sketchy Kevin. I worked my way through Sketchy Kevin, another guy I'd call Pissy Pete, and then finally a guy named Rat Tail, named so because he wore his hair in a rat tail like 10 years ago after it got lame to do so. He also partly earned the nickname due to being a complete and utter scumbag, but by noon on Christmas Day, I was relying on that scumbag to score me some dope. Rat Tail said that he'd see what he could do, and would call me back if anything came up. About an hour later, he did, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted to hear. Rat Tail said that there was a dude named George who would just straight up give me a couple of grams, but he just needed a favor. Right away, I thought that was weird, because who the hell just gives away dope? But Rat Tail said that he wasn't a junkie, and he needed someone who didn't mind getting their hands dirty. I didn't like the sound of that, nor did I have any idea what Rat Tail meant, but I was also in no position to turn the offer down, so off I went after getting a hold of George's address. The last place I expected to end up that day was a nice-looking 3-story right on the edge of where the city meets the suburbs. It was way too nice of a place to have any heroin inside, but then again, appearances can be deceptive. I walked up the driveway, knocked on the door, and some totally normal-looking, well-to-do dentist-looking dude welcomes me inside like I'm some late dinner guest that he'd been expecting. It was to the point where, despite this dude expecting me, I sort of didn't believe that he had the dope to just give away, and I started thinking that he was like a cop or something. I don't know how that had worked out, but I honestly couldn't mentally handle the setup, so I just started asking questions. Where's this dude's family? Did he actually have the dope? Could I see it, and could I fix before I did whatever he wanted me to do? The guy had no problem showing me the dope, and he had no problem if I used a little, if it helped me get the job done. I was so desperate by then that whatever it was didn't matter. All that mattered was the dope. I took the baggie he gave me, went up to the bathroom and did my thing. All I did was smoke and snort. Never got into needles, always hated them. So it was a relatively quick process of snorting some and then seeing what the deal was with the task that he wanted. And during that, George leads me onto the 3rd floor of the house and into what he said was the guest bedroom. And there, lying on the bed, was the body. The kid looked to be about high school age, and he was just laying on their back, wide-eyed, with all this dried puke around his mouth. I'll never forget what George said to me when I gave him this look of horror. He was 18, I swear. The poor kid's age was the very last thing on my mind in that moment. I had a ton of other questions, and George seemed more than happy to fill me in without me asking. I don't know what happened. One minute we were, then the next he... And that was all he said. Well, aside from the very last thing, which was, I need him gone.
Yeah.
I'd rather not go into what happened next. I'm not proud of it, and to be perfectly honest, it's extremely incriminating.
What did you do?
I don't imagine George was really George, and I don't know how in the hell he knew a guy like Rattail, but the only thing that keeps my conscience clean is thinking that at least he didn't kill him. If it was just a tragic accident that happened, I don't know, somehow, then all I did was help clean it up. At least that's what I told myself at the time. And now I'm not so capable of lying to myself.
Oh, that bag. The fuck is his feet twisted up like that? Why's his hand sticking out the bag? Why is his bag so little? Bro, do not look that little. Maybe. Yes.
And so, that's the story of the worst Christmas I ever had, where I hid a dead body for some varnished old psycho just to get enough heroin to see me through the holidays. Worst thing is, I didn't even quit for like another year. Not truly, that is. But that was definitely the event that made me realize that I truly hit rock bottom. Getting clean was rough too, especially rough. I wanted so badly to put things right, but not only was I so high at the time that I'm not sure I could remember exactly where I put all the pieces, but I was far too cowardly to face up to all the terrible things I'd done during my years as a junkie. I guess this works as a sort of confession too, but I think it reads much better as a warning, and not even specifically regarding heroin either. No matter what you do in life, don't ever sell your soul for anything. And by that I mean, nothing is worth selling your conscience or your innocence for, because they're not things that you can never get back once they're gone. And my second warning is that ghosts are very, very real. They're not real in the sense that you might expect, but if you do something terrible enough to someone innocent enough, you can bet your bottom dollar they'll haunt you for the rest of your life. Just like that poor naked teenager with puke around his mouth still haunts me every single Christmas.
I'm an elementary school teacher. Winter break just started. I'm feeling super joyful. But before break, some of the kids were talking about their presents and Santa. It got me thinking about when I stopped believing in Santa, which is the story that I'm going to share with you all, because when it comes to finding out about Santa Claus and that he isn't real,
Excuse me.
I had a pretty uniquely terrifying experience. I loved Christmas. I mean, I still do. But as a child, I absolutely could not sleep on Christmas Eve. I tried to spy Santa a million times. I'd wait for my parents to go to bed, try to sneak out. They'd catch me every single time. Except one year. I was in second grade, so probably like 6 or 7 years old. I recall my best friend at school saying something like pretend to be asleep. Then my parents will go to sleep faster, so sneaking out to meet Santa would be easier.
Oh, you
Perfect.
a big ass 6, 7-year-old.
So Christmas Eve shows
you
up.
say 6, 7-year-old or 6th grader?
Every single time. I'd wait for my parents to try to sneak out. They'd catch me every single time. Except one year. I was in second grade, so probably like 6 or 7 years old.
Oh,
I recall my best friend at school saying something like pretend to be asleep. Then my parents will go to sleep faster, so sneaking out to meet Santa would be easier. Perfect. So Christmas Eve shows up. I'm riddled with angst, and I remember my friend's advice. Pretend to be asleep. And that's what I did. Before Christmas Story was even over, I started to act sleepy. I don't know how great my acting skills were, but it was good enough to where my dad said he should just take me up to bed. I obliged and allowed myself to be carried. When my dad left the room, I think I waited just a few moments before getting out of bed and sitting next to the door. I was listening for all the key indicators that the house was sleeping. What I remember most is how long it took. Forever. I actually dozed off, and when I woke up, the house noises had subsided. I figured my parents had been in their room for long enough, and decided now I'm gonna make my move. Opening my door with such grace, I slid out of the doorway and started my way up to the living room. A combo of tiptoeing and sliding, until eventually I reached our couch. I dove into the couch, lifted the curtains, and then sat wrapped up in a blanket, peering out the window for Santa. It was snowing, and I could have sworn that I heard sleigh bells, but I wasn't seeing anyone. I had a gut-wrenching thought. Maybe he had already come. I squirmed out of the blanket and curtains, looked at the tree and stockings.
Sleeping in the bed with jeans on.
He hadn't arrived yet.
Crazy.
As I maneuvered back under the curtains, I'm shocked. I see the man himself, Santa. He's walking though, no sleigh and no reindeer. But I'm not picky, it's Santa. I realize he's gonna pass right by my house, but he's looking all over the place, at all the houses and all the windows. What's he looking for? I think to myself. Then he stops in his tracks, gives another look around at all the houses before his eyes land on me. He sees me. I'm ecstatic. I start waving excitedly, trying so hard not to squeal. He waves back, and then looks around before he starts walking toward my window. As he approaches, I notice that he's got a bag with him, and I assume it's full of presents. He mouths or whispers the phrase, "Do you want to come say hi to Santa, sweetie?" I shake my head yes.
Oh,
he points to the front door.
Boy.
I leave the window and walk over to the door, where there's another long window that reaches the floor. I watch as Santa tries to open up the door, but it's locked. I reach for the lock, unlocking the door, and he tries again. From the other side of the door, I hear him say, "Okay, sweetie, you just gotta unlock that other lock, the one on the doorknob." So I try to do what he's telling me, but for some reason I can't quite grip the lock.
Good.
My little fingers keep slipping. Santa then tells me it's okay, just go to the back door. Brilliant. I scoot over to the back door and I wait for Santa. He rounds the corner, and the light from the back deck turns on. Santa is fully illuminated. And I remember thinking, wow, Santa is a lot younger than I thought he was. Skinnier too. The lights seemed to scare him. He almost ran away until he saw me standing there. Then he proceeded to hustle towards the door. He was telling me and motioning me that I need to be quick. He said he had something special for me, but he had to then go. He leaned down and was reaching for something inside his bag. I unlocked the sliding glass door. I push my hands against the glass and start to push the door by walking my body in the direction I needed to open it. I'll note that even today, this door is hard to open or close if it's at the wrong angle. But at 6 or 7, it's nearly impossible. Just as he turned around, I heard the door start to give way, and as soon as it had, the home was filled with this awful sound of alarms. I took my hands away from the door and plugged my ears, and I looked at Santa. He now looked panicked. I noticed he was now holding some sort of rope in one hand and a bag in the other. He drops the bag and reaches for the sliding door. He slides it open no problem. He then reaches for me. But before I can reach back or move or do anything, I'm swept up by my mother. My dad kicks Santa square in the chest, knocking him back several feet, landing him on his backside. That's all I saw before my mom rushed me back to their bedroom and locked the door. My mom tells me that I didn't even cry at that point, which makes sense. I don't remember crying or even being terribly upset. Not until later. It was when my parents explained that the man who came to our house wasn't Santa. My dad kept saying things like, "She still thinks he's real. Of course she tried to let the guy in." Then I did start crying. That was all while the police were there. What happened to the guy? He got away-ish. The guy took off once he gained footing, and my dad didn't bother chasing him because he'd gotten the guy's wallet. The cops were on the phone, and the guy left his bag behind. That bag wasn't filled with presents. My dad told me that it was filled with more rope, like the kind the man had been holding. There's duct tape, candy, miscellaneous tools like a hammer, a lot of plastic bags, and random clothes. Yeah, it's horrifying. But luckily, he was picked up just a few minutes after he left our house. Pretty hard not to spot the guy running around town dressed up like Santa Claus. In the end, I did forgive my parents for ruining the magic that is believing in Santa, because you know, they did save my life.
Alright, that's enough of this, because I ain't gonna lie. These animations not even scary. Just, shit ain't hidden.
And God bless screaming.
Alex, let me check something.
And God bless screaming grandpa, and God bless mommy and daddy.
Hey, my grandma got the know her tree.
And God
not this shit, but she had them on the tree.
bless mommy and daddy, and also God bless Santa so they may find our house and bring us lots of presents. We've been good all year long, God. Well, except that incident at assembly last week, but that was Tommy's idea, God, not mine. So, please don't punish me. Thank you. Amen.
Why does it look so familiar? Make it look familiar. Oh. That's it.
Hey, did you say your prayers?
Yes.
Good. Now
I ain't gonna go past that. We got two of the best superheroes ever created. Just about a minute
did
now.
you say your prayers?
Yeah, Andrew.
Yes.
Good. Now get some sleep. Remember, Santa knows when you're awake.
Yeah, stars.
How does he know
Not a
when I'm
rolling
awake?
voice.
He's too busy delivering presents all around the world.
Santa doesn't share his secrets. You have your monster killer?
Yes, Mom, I have my monster killer.
Good.
Is that a...
You have your monster killer?
Yes, Mom, I have my monster killer.
What is that? Is that supposed to be a
Good.
boy?
All right.
Can you leave the door open?
I have a park
Just a
on the
little,
road.
please.
Of course.
You tripping.
Remember, he knows when you're awake.
You could have said that looking at me. You gotta be ominous about it. Yeah, you know what, Mama? Close the door. I don't...
Mom?
What did she just say?
Mom?
Go to sleep. Just fly down the stairs. Nigga, close the door. Oh, you got that thing on. What is that? You kill a lemon with the thing clawed up.
Oh, hey.
Alright,
Relax,
never mind.
buddy. Is everything okay?
Yes.
Mommy is hurt
This
on
ain't
the
hesitate.
staircase.
Hey, it's all right, little man. Your mom's in the kitchen cleaning up that mess you guys made, baking those cookies for Santa Claus.
Everything okay? I heard you scream.
I heard you fall down the stairs.
It's fine. He just had a little nightmare.
Oh, honey, everything's okay. We're just right downstairs. Go back to bed. Try to get some sleep, okay?
Yeah, you don't want Santa skipping over us because he's not asleep.
You let that go too easily. I would have been on my ass.
We love you, honey.
Love you too.
Sit down some stairs. How you up walking? And you'd be a little hurt or something. Get close to that. Oh, hell no. Yeah, no. My night would be ruined. But close the door. You worry about what's outside. See the house.
Mom?
Oh, the flow clean.
He sees you when you're sleeping. He knows when you're
Wasn't expecting that. Okay. Close it a little bit more. You want to get caught. You didn't close it enough. Bigaboo, nigga. I'm here with you, gang. Yeah, I would have gave up. We can have it. Doing all this for nothing.
Good morning, Tyler. Merry Christmas. We thought you were going to sleep all day. Your father's ready to open presents.
Come on, get out my room.
Come on downstairs, sleepyhead.
Whoa.
What
There
was
he
you
is.
just looking at?
Whoa.
I was just watching the fire burn.
There he is. Merry Christmas, little man.
You got me a football?
I'm gonna take you to the field,
You should
show
not
you
be
throw
that
like
happy.
your old man.
All right.
Hey. Let's wait for your mom, all right?
bro,
We'll start
chill.
with these little ones over here.
He still goes in the bag. Hey, bro,
Merry
he said the little one.
Christmas.
Thank you.
He sees you when you're
Yep, no.
sleeping.
Get out. Go. Go. I don't even trust nobody with a smell like that.
He knows when you're awake.
You smell with more. Yeah. Just, eh. What the hell? What the hell is this? The beat up. Ski, motherfucker.